and welcome to My Brain is a Wonderland, the podcast for neurodivergent women and the people who love them. You're here with your host, Emily, talking about everything to do with being late diagnosed with ADHD and autism. I'm just sitting here with my matcha, my current hyperfixation drink. It's hot as hell right now outside. I'm in Florida, and man, it's been 97 degrees Fahrenheit out in existence, which is not okay. If you're listening from the UK, what's that in Celsius? I don't know. 30 hell? I honestly don't know. And I have some really awesome news that I'm going to save for the end of the episode. But if you are interested in meeting me or seeing me talk about some stuff in public in an area that is neurodivergent affirming, very friendly, maybe a bit nerdy, then stay tuned for the end of the episode, because I'm going to tell you when and where you can do that. But today we're going to be talking about gaming, board games specifically, a little bit of D&D thrown in there, how I enjoy them, don't enjoy them, what has been a struggle for me when being part of a D&D group or gaming with other people, and some tips for dungeon masters and other people who are hosting games and gaming days and board game nights and whatever for people who are, or may potentially be, or you don't know because maybe they haven't said, are neurodivergent. So when I was a kid, I actually didn't play many board games. I didn't have a lot of money growing up. Not just me, my family, obviously. I was a kid, I didn't have any money. But it wasn't really about that, even though board games were and are expensive. I was an only child, so I didn't have any siblings. I had an older cousin, but not really any younger cousins. I didn't have anyone to play with, is the reality of it. And so the only board game I ever remember having was Clue, or Cluedo in the UK is what it's called. And I got that, I think, for Christmas one year. That's clearly manifesting, or can't even think of the word now, predicting my true crime tendencies right there, because I loved that game. But I didn't play any board games growing up, really. I played a lot of card games. So gin rummy, solitaire, or patience, as it's called in England. And actually, patience, I don't know if my older cousin taught this to me because he could see the deal. But basically, it was a great way to keep me busy and to keep my hands busy. If you've seen The Crown, the Queen plays it when she's just hanging out. She plays patience. And it is a great way to keep your hands busy, like knitting in front of the TV. It stops me from chewing my fingers. It kind of acts like a fidget spinner, but you're playing a game, and keeps your brain a bit distracted. So if you're watching a movie, but you can't focus, we always need our brains and hands to be occupied when we have ADHD a lot of the time. I honestly really recommend taking up actual physical solitaire or patience, the game. And you can look it up online how to play it, but it's basically the same as the computer game. And it's really nice to have it tangible in your hands. People with ADHD and neurodivergent people actually cope with that a lot better than neurotypicals having something physical in their hands versus digital. There was a game that I would play that, oh my god, it was like the game of the century, and I was always just like, oh my god, this house is amazing. When I would go and visit my friends, who I think they had, was it 5 children? 1, 2, 3. They had 4, and then they had another baby, so they had 5. And we would play, it was a Disney board game in the 90s, and I haven't looked it up, and I'm not sure what it is, but I was so enamored with it, and I thought they were the coolest, family because they had this board game. But really, being an only child, I just didn't play a lot of board games. Growing up and becoming a teenager, an adult, I realized very quickly that when you are the nerd that I am, so loves fantasy, sci-fi, have been going to conventions since I was about 14 or 15 in the UK, and I still do, then you're going to play a lot of board games and definitely be exposed to D&D even if you don't want to be. And I honestly didn't realize that board games had gotten so intense, right? Like, when I was growing up, I played some video games, played Clue, I didn't realize they'd become these hours-long events where even learning the rules is an event, right? And we have a lot of board games now in our living room that we play often. Old games, we have Rat Trap. Is that the name of it? The one where the trap comes down on the little plastic rat and everything. That was another one, actually, that was really exciting for me when I was a kid. We have Dominion, and now I'm not going to be able to name any of the other board games that we have, but we have a bunch of them. Oh, I have like 2 Buffy board games that I love, and my husband placates me by playing them with me. But yeah, I didn't realize they'd gotten so intense. And they require a lot of focus, right? If you're going into a board game situation where it's something like it's going to take hours, there's lots of stuff to learn, then you really need to be focused. Which is something I struggle with. Nowadays, most new games are made with these little cards. What are they called? Order of events cards, kind of. And so everyone gets a card who's playing, and it literally tells you on your turn what you can and cannot do, what you should do. You need to move your character. A, move your character. B, next thing you're going to do is roll the dice. Or C, next thing you're going to do is da-da-da. D, next thing you're going to do is choose between this and that. And so that has been really helpful for me in staying focused, but also learning the rules and strategy of the game. The thing is, for me, I'm really not great at strategy, and I think this might be a bit of a neurodivergent thing. So please reach out to me if you have struggled with this as well. But I tend to only see the next step. And this is in everything, not just games. It's a struggle for me to formulate a plan that goes from one step through to the 12th step. So, if I'm in a game like chess, oh my god, chess, I'm not good at chess. My husband was in, I'm going to say varsity chess, and that sounds insane. I don't think that's a real thing. I'm English, I'm sorry. He was on the chess team, I don't know. He went around the state playing chess and crap in high school. So he's really good at chess, and he's amazing at strategy. He can see where we need to go in anything and get there and formulate the steps, whereas I'm more of just a next step person. So if we're playing chess, I move the pawn because in that moment I'm like, okay, that pawn's going to go there because someone's coming for it, or I want to get that thing. But then he's thinking, my husband, well, in the next 2 steps I'm going to get that pawn and take it. And when we first started playing games together, it was a bit of a nightmare. We would play this video game, Dynasty Warriors, together, where you're basically Chinese warlords or competing factions or something, and you're fighting each other in a war. And you'd play together, and you'd have to run off separately and go do these things. And I'd have to say to him, where should I go? I don't even know what to do next, Or I'd say, I'm going to run over here and kill all these people. And he's like, why? That makes no sense at all. When we move couches and furniture, he's looking at me like, can you not see where we're going with this? The angle and what the next step is? And I'm like, not really, dude. I have no idea. So I find strategy very difficult to make. I can't make strategies. I'm just really bad at it. And this has been a struggle in board games. My husband and I are able to, if we're just playing a 2-person game, we're able to work together and he's able to help me. But I have played D&D in the past and it was not good. I think it was 5th edition and we would play once a week for hours. And I was the only woman in the room, which in my opinion did make it more difficult. It wasn't geared towards what I might be interested in. There was a lot of male energy that I wasn't a big fan of. I don't know. It just wasn't good. I knew what my character was. It was a dragonborn. That's the thing that kind of looks like a human with a dragon head, right? Dragonborn. And I loved her. And I had my little figurine for it. And I knew what she was capable of and what she did, what her, hits and special things were, I'm going to just preface this right now. I'm going to say a lot of stuff about D&D that's wrong, okay? I didn't play it for very long, probably 6 to 9 months, once a week, and I wasn't good at it and really lacked in focus. I didn't enjoy it. Not to say that I wouldn't enjoy D&D, but I didn't enjoy this particular group. And what I wanted to do with my Dragonborn is I wanted to play it how I wanted to play it. I wanted to play it how I would be in real life. I didn't really have a strategy. And so when they would say, the DM would be like, okay, so now there's a big blob that just burst through this wall, and it's saying this and it's doing that. What are you going to do? And I would say, well, I'm going to do this move. And then all the guys would start saying, no, you should do the other thing. Don't you see, you have this thing you should do? And if you do that, actually, it drove me freaking insane. Because, first of all, I don't like authority and being told what to do. I could literally be thinking of doing something, and if I haven't said it out loud, but then someone says you should do that, I'll be like, well, no, I don't want to do it. You've annoyed me, I don't want to do it. And I just wanted to play it the way I wanted to play, which is honestly without any strategy. And I'm saying, well, this is my character. This is how I would be in real life. If we approached a war, I'd be like, all right, I'm going to go stab that guy in the chest. And they're like, okay, don't do that. We're going to do that. And I'm like, well, what am I doing here then? What am I doing here if you're not going to let me play the way I want to play? And I think, having learned a bit more about D&D, people looked at me as like this kind of saboteur, this kind of, you're not working in the collaborative way that a team would do. And instead of, I don't know if honestly there's anything they could have done, because I was just very resistant to the group and feeling like I didn't belong in the group and that I didn't vibe with anyone there except, my husband was in it. And it was just very difficult to play. I knew what I was supposed to do. I had my character sheet, but it was very difficult to figure out what everyone wanted me to do. And I didn't want to always do what other people wanted me to do. I wanted to do what I wanted to do. So that, was a negative experience for me. And I actually haven't gone back to D&D since that experience. I did recently meet a girl at work who said that she's had the same experience in D&D groups. They're very male-centered, male-focused. And so she started a D&D group with only women. And they play together, and I thought, oh, that sounds kind of fun. She did say, though, that their next campaign is a Swiftie campaign, which I'm totally not against that, but I know nothing about Taylor Swift. Shake It Off. Yeah, that's it. I know nothing about Taylor Swift. So, well, we'll see if that becomes a thing. Another thing about gaming is I struggle with delayed satisfaction. So if a game takes a long time to give you that payoff, right? Which... there's a board game I got for my husband. Oh, what is it called? It's a Star Wars board game, and it's in a little moon, kind of half moon shape, which I think is very cool because it's set in space. So doesn't look like a board, it's a little half moon shape. But it takes forever to get to the payoff, to get this feeling of like, oh, I actually did something that's exciting. And really the excitement I get from it is the story is quite rich, and I enjoy playing it with my husband. A game I do like is Pandemic. And Pandemic has I wouldn't say easy, but it has quick payoffs that are satisfying sooner than other games. So you're trying to... this is a little too close to home now, isn't it? Because this game came out before 2020. What you do is pandemics break out in cities around the world. There's like 4 different, I think, in the main game. And you have to try to put them out, like cure them and just like wipe them out, vaccinate everybody. You play different people, like a scientist, or I can't even think who the other people are. But once you like get to a city and wipe it out or cure it there, that's like, ooh, satisfaction. Ooh, I wiped that out. Ooh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Now I've got it going. Now I'm feeling the vibe. So I really like Pandemic. It's not necessarily a quick game, but it gives you those quick payoffs. And if I don't have the quick payoffs in between, like Catan. Catan is a good one. Haven't played that in a while, but you get the payoffs where you build the thing and you build that and you take over that square or hexagon, whatever that freaking shape is. But the ones where it just takes forever to get the payoff, it's really difficult for me. Another thing is that I'm jumping over a little bit here. I think my hyperactivity might be spiking right now. I just worked out and some stuff happened at work today that kind of got me hopped up. Nothing bad, but kind of had my energy hopped up. So sorry, I'm hopping around right now. I think my hyperactivity is like really feeding into this episode right now. But I have said in the past, I have an auditory processing disorder. I guess it's part of my neurodivergency. When I was assessed and then diagnosed with ADHD and autism, they rated me really low on being able to auditory process. So repeat stuff back, repeat stories, process language, as it said. So in D&D, that's pretty much all the freaking Dungeon Master does, right? Is talks all the time. Says, okay, now this thing came through, now this is happening, and these are important things. And I'm not able to understand exactly what's happening because there's too much chatter. And then other characters are talking, right? So the DM is going, okay, this is what's happening, go. And then this person, on my team is going, okay, so this is what I'm going to do. And it's all spoken. So I find it very difficult to keep track of the game. Even if there is a board, which we had a board, the board, you can make a board where it's dressed up with little buildings and little people and it shows where you're going, and we had that, and I still couldn't follow a freaking thing. So what I'm going to do is, for people who play games or host games or game at all, I'm going to give you some tips that I have used for helping me focus, enjoy games, include people who are neurodivergent, and just make them a little more welcome and able to play a game that might not vibe with their brain chemistry at the time. So the first thing is specifically for D&D, and I'm going to say things that are, like I said, I don't know everything about it, so I'm sorry. But when a new, I think it's called an encounter, is put on the board, that the DM says, okay, new thing is happening, new villain, new thing to kill, new boss or whatever. Or this is a new, you encounter a bunch of mushrooms that are poisonous, one idiot on the team eats it, what do you do now? Whatever. When that happens, prepare some story cards. And this might seem like a lot, but from the DMs I know, it's not a lot because you prepare a bunch of crap for your games. So prepare some encounter cards. When you say, the big blob comes through the wall and he's spraying off this gas and he does this and now you have to decide what to do, blah, blah, blah. Write that on a card that you can print out and give to the people you're playing with so that you have a visual reference that can be read and referred back to in the middle of the game. Because when you've said as a DM, here's what's happening, blah, 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 I'm not going to remember that. It's not that I'm not going to remember it, it's that I'm not going to be able to process it as you say it. Then you move on very quickly. I could ask you to repeat it, but may not process it again. We've all been there. Sorry, what'd you say? Say that again? Oh, I'm sorry. And then that person just wants to kill you. So prepare encounter descriptor cards, I guess. Cards that tell you what's happening. And maybe some people already do this, but I have not encountered that at all. Thank God the character sheet is printed and written out. But for the actual action, the storyline, print out some stuff just on a piece of paper or write it out. I mean, whatever. It can be homemade. It doesn't matter. Just saying what is happening and the key things. Bolding some key points. Double space it. That's good for neurodivergent people to process and read. So we can actually get a handle on what we're trying to do. And like I said, refer back. So when we're thinking, okay, what's that guy again? Is he big and blue and, breathes fire? Or he's small and green and squirts water? Like, honestly, I can't remember any of this stuff. So I super recommend that. The other stuff I'm about to say is not to do with gameplay, it's to do with the atmosphere. If you provide snacks, which I know for D&D and board gaming you can be there for hours. If you're going to provide snacks, and I'm not saying that neurodivergent people shouldn't bring their own snacks and this is all on you, but I'm just saying if you want to help or you want to be inclusive, or you're just making food anyway, or buying food, buy crunchy food. So chips with dips, all those kind of crunchy, I said chips, and now my brain has just flown off the deep end. I'm telling you, I can feel it. I am riding a hyperactive wave right now, and I'm not sure I've ever recorded like this on the podcast, so again, I'm jumping around and forgetting some stuff. But chips, little crunchy snacks. One of my favorite crunchy things is cucumbers. So if you like hummus, get some cucumbers. Ooh, mini carrots, things like that. If you want to, get some veggies in there. But crunchy is good for the sensory experience. It also, a lot of neurodivergent people have sensory issues with food that are like, squishy, moist, bleh, soggy. Okay, all those words just made me want to heave. So crunchy, think crunchy, and it helps to keep you distracted, almost like a fidget spinner, that if you're eating crunchy foods, it kind of distracts and takes up that sensory space and helps you focus. The other thing is that I found in a lot of spaces, not just gaming spaces, but in the general planet and world, is that people don't recognize how lighting is just horrible. Lights, bulbs are my nemesis on the planet. I cannot stand them when they are shining down in my face, whether it's a strip light, a bulb that's on, a lamp that's cutting right into my eye out of the corner of my eye. It's just awful. So if you have dimmer switches, make a dimmer. If you can I used to do this all the time, I throw a t-shirt over lamps in my in-laws' house because it was so bright when it would come under the lamp. Use daylight, open blinds instead of having that bright light. And that's one of my personal ones, but I think for neurodivergent people in terms of sensory stuff, it's over hours. I mean, it doesn't take long for me to just get a headache and really just be non-verbal because of the bright light. And the final thing I'm going to say is to just ask them. This is something I think I've said on the podcast before, but if not, here we go. Someone I know who works in DE&I, that's diversity, equity, inclusion, in a corporation in HR, said, here's something I have been told or said or whatever. Sorry, again, jumping all over the place. Gotta stop saying sorry. Is that when you've met one autistic person, you've met one autistic person. When you've met one person with ADHD, you've met one person with ADHD. And what that means is we're all so unique, even though we kind of float in the same bubble and probably have a lot of the same things. How we react to them and how it plays out in our daily life can be very unique and different. And just because I have an auditory processing issue and just because I love crunchy foods doesn't mean, someone you play with necessarily wants a crunchy food or something. Generally, that's true, but just ask. Ask what would help them feel better. Ask what would entice them to play the game. Ask them if there's anything that you or the atmosphere you've been doing or that the atmosphere is displaying that is not pleasant for them. And to be honest, if you're not neurodivergent, they might come out very bluntly and might come out saying things that might seem insensitive or very much like, I don't like the way you talk. It hurts my ears, or I don't like, your house because of this, that, and the other. Look, you ask them, so you gotta take the response. That's the thing, right? But just ask. Ask what you can do, and you don't have to bend over backwards. If they say something, you're like, well, I can't do that, I'm sorry, but I'd really still love you to play. But it doesn't hurt to ask. If there's something you can accommodate, it doesn't hurt to ask them what that could be. And then you're being inclusive. And maybe you ask everybody, right? There can be people who don't know they're neurodivergent, people who do know and don't want to tell you. So maybe ask everybody, make it very inclusive and say individually, send an email or just ask personally, in person one-on-one. Is there anything I could do to make this experience better for you? Are you having issues with the smell here, the snacks, the lighting? Are you having any issues with the way I'm playing the game? And a lot of people might not, like I said, say anything, but a lot of neurodivergent people will be blunt if you ask them outright. So just ask them and ask everybody and make it really inclusive, and you might be surprised that someone else who you don't think is or isn't neurodivergent has some things to say that they would like to be included in the game as well. So there's all my little tips and my experience with gaming, and specifically physical gaming. I didn't talk much about playing video games. Maybe I'll do an episode on that. But that's my experience and what I have dealt with and my tips for including others in your fandom, in your gaming, and in your little geeky life. And now I want to tell you about the really exciting news that I mentioned at the beginning. If you want to meet me or hear me talk, or just be part of a community that is neurodivergent affirming and a nice place to be. If you have heard of DragonCon, it is a huge convention in Atlanta. There's going to be 65,000 people there this weekend, over Labor Day weekend, and we are celebrating big this year because attendance has been limited since COVID. They didn't even have it for a couple of years during COVID, or it was virtual. But I am going to be part of a panel at DragonCon. I have been going to this thing for years, and I am so excited to be a part of this. On Saturday, I am going to be at the Hyatt Hotel in Hanover A&B at 2:30, and I'm going to be part of a panel called Breaking Barriers, Empowering the Disabled in Fandom. We're going to be engaging in a dynamic discussion that tackles the challenges faced by the disabled in the world of fandom. We're going to talk about inspiring solutions and explore ways to create a more inclusive and accessible fan community. If you are going to be there, I would love to meet you. I would love for you to attend, and double check the app, because I'm recording this a couple of weeks out from the event. Double check the DragonCon app to check the schedule. But I will be there with bells on, and hopefully my hyperactivity's reined in a little bit, but I can't promise anything because my anxiety is probably going to be through the roof when I do this thing. I'm super excited, and I'd love to see anyone there who's going. There are weekend tickets, and I think they're day tickets. I don't know if they've sold out already, and they're only selling those online. So go to DragonCon online if you would like to attend. And I'd hope to see some of you there, and I'd love to meet any of you who'd love to meet me. With that, I'm going to end this episode. And again, if you are loving what you're hearing, please leave a 5-star review wherever you're listening to your podcasts. Apple Podcasts, I think I have a couple of reviews on there, so I'd appreciate a few more. You can throw them up on Spotify, Google Podcasts. I would really appreciate it. And share. Follow me on social media and share my stuff. On TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, share my reels, share my shorts. That's YouTube shorts, not my pants. And you'll find me there under My Brain is a Wonderland, and you can see all of this information in the show notes if you want to know how to reach me by email. And I'm excited to either see you at DragonCon or see you again on the next episode of My Brain is a Wonderland, Season 2. I hope you have a great rest of your day. Bye-bye.